Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 News. What a day we have had in Interlagos. One of the greatest drives in the history of Formula 1 from Max Verstappen to take advantage of a catastrophic collapse from the other side in Lando Norris, his supposed championship rival. Drama from the start of the day to the end. Lando Norris talking to the media as well in very interesting terms at the end of the Grand Prix, which do not paint anyone in a especially good light from that camp. So much to get into today. I'm currently live from Heathrow Airport because it's the only way that I can record a video right now, but we have to with what we saw on track today. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Hamilton, by the way, did finally complete the laps in the Senna 1990 McLaren car, and he made some interesting statements after the race where he effectively said if that's the last time we get to do this, then it's a shame that it ended like that. Kind of confused me because he's now been talking about going on holiday for the last few rounds. So there's a bit of a storyline potentially brewing there. But we're going to talk about the drama of qualifying first of all, because Max starting where he did was not expected, obviously. We thought that he'd be far further up the grid today, and it happened because qualifying was an absolute disaster class in many respects. The red flags, what a day. Honestly, I can't remember a day like this in Formula 1 in a very long time. So the red flags are everywhere, and it nearly caught out Lando Norris, right, in the first part of qualifying. Hamilton, his car was obviously terrible. He was having a terrible time. His best time of the whole weekend was in that Senna McLaren, no doubt about it. And Norris was very, very lucky to even get through Q1. It was absolute chaos because it was pissing down with rain. They finally got it to work, all on the wet tyres, of course. And Norris gets through here. I think it was Verstappen P1 and it was Norris P15, just scraping through the first part of qualifying. So hugely influential there. Colapinto, of course, crashed out early on, so that was mega for Norris even getting through, because Albon at this point was P1. It was an absolute mess, obviously. And then we got some of the drama, right? So this is when Lando Norris was blessed in many respects, but also Max Verstappen was absolutely fuming, and understandably at this time of the day, because Sainz goes off into the barriers, as did many others. And when are the red flags called? That is the question. The FIA try, apparently, to wait until the driver basically can't make it back to the pits, and when that's determined, then they will call the red flag. And that's basically the situation we found ourselves in here. So during Q2, the laps were getting faster and faster pretty much anyway. The conditions are all over the shop. Obviously, it was an absolute mess. But this was the moment where Stroll goes off into the barriers. And at this very moment, this is a few seconds after that, 30, 40 seconds after, when it was just about to become a red flag, which is what happens. Now, Max has lost time in Sector 1 here anyway because he had to slow down for the yellows. What Red Bull wanted, though, is for this very moment when Stroll crashed, they wanted the red flag called here, because if it was called immediately, Verstappen would have been in. Of course, the reality is, literally 1 second after this, Verstappen dropped down to P11. So realistically, it never mattered. And also, even if there was still 1 minute 30 on the clock, would it have been enough to get round to start another lap again after the red flag, especially because having the first pit box? Probably not, to be honest. So I think it was probably over for Red Bull anyway, but they timed it badly, and these conditions can catch out the best of drivers and teams. So Verstappen and Perez both out of qualifying. Verstappen was absolutely fuming about it. So was Jos, of course, his father. Bottas out qualifies both of the Red Bulls, and that of course meant Verstappen starting P17. So again, is it incompetence from the FIA? Is it deliberate malice from the FIA? Like, I would more lean towards the former of the two, as I've said before, but highly controversial, right, when you've got one red flag getting called after 20 seconds, one red flag getting called 40, 50 seconds later. It's an absolute mess. So Verstappen was in the press conference, and this actually wasn't in the press conference, so I don't think he's going to get fired for this or community service or whatever, but he says, like, I don't understand why there was such a delay 34 seconds after that. And to be fair to Norris, in the morning today, he actually had some clutch. I don't know what was going on. We certainly didn't see it later in the day. But when it mattered in the morning, Lando had to deliver the laps in tricky conditions. He went out there, he got the job done. P1, purple when it mattered, and went purple again when it mattered at the end of the session after Albon. Tough for Albon, right? Because he had such a good day up to this point and then binned it in the wall. So, yeah, disaster class really there. But at the end of qualifying, I mean, both of the, there were so many crashes. Both of the Astons had their moments there to rebuild the car, but Norris got pole ahead of Russell, ahead of Tsunoda. What a day. It should have been a better day for Tsunoda, but unfortunately they put in for the wets, which was a terrible decision. It was the correct decision if you don't know what the FIA are going to do, which you do. We'll get to that in the race. But Norris gets pole. I mean, it doesn't get any better than this, right? Norris P1, Verstappen starting P17. Now, to be fair, with the crashes and the rebuilding of the cars, Verstappen was starting a bit further up the grid than he would have been otherwise. There was even talk that Hamilton was going to start from the pit lane. That never happened. But, I mean, in many ways, Verstappen might have got bailed out by this, because this was absolute madness. Like, everything that could have happened today, happened today. Like, that is the absurdity of where we find ourselves. So, Lance Stroll on the formation lap, he's done this before at like Monaco, right? But he goes off on the formation lap, spins off, breaks his front wing, and then inexplicably decides to just drive onto the gravel. And literally his onboard, he drives onto the gravel. He gets stuck in the gravel, and that's it. So congratulations, I guess. What an absolute disaster. And then when the race goes to begin, it was an aborted start procedure, but they hadn't told the drivers what to do. Usually if it's aborted start, they do another formation lap. But they actually hadn't said that, I don't think, technically, on the instructions. So it wasn't green. They actually weren't meant to go here. So Lando and a number of the front runners, as I'm recording this, is still under investigation for this. Max and the other guys just sat on the grid because they knew the rules. But it was an absolute mess. And then during that period, so they had a 10-minute delay while they reset the grid because Stroll had messed it all up, basically. Don't know why this guy's still in the sport. Well, I do know, but, you know, topic for another day, I guess. Both of the Mercedes guys, they tried to change their tyre pressures, it seems. Russell says they weren't even successful in doing what they were trying to do, so I don't even really know, to be honest, whether there's anything in this. But they tried to change it, and if they did change it, that's against the rules. So that could be a double disqualification as it stands. But the race gets underway, and I was on a train while this is going down, so my internet was terrible, and I have some very low-quality screenshots of what was happening. But again, Lando Norris off the line loses the lead into turn one. It's like, what's this, 7 times now this season it's happened, and today really showed why one driver is going to be the world champion and one driver isn't, because as conditions like today separated the men from the boys, and we saw that absolutely. So Norris, you know, look, he just needed to stay ahead of Russell. It would have been fine. He would have probably been away and gone potentially in this race. Now, obviously, the way the race happened, there would have been more drama, but you know, he couldn't afford to be behind Russell when the Mercedes was the slower car and he was getting held up big time. So a couple of laps in, Verstappen had already made mega progress. From P17, he had a lightning start, gets ahead of his teammate Perez, who span, gets ahead of Hamilton as well, was making so many overtakes. And Verstappen was immediately the fastest man on track. And genuinely, on lap like 4 or 5, I thought Verstappen could actually win this. Like, it's definitely possible Max can win this, because it looked like he was going to be P3, P4 in a matter of time. And of course, Lawson and Tsunoda aren't going to put up much of a fight. And it's still controversial that that's the case. But look, it didn't matter. An absolute MAXterclass today. So Max is absolutely flying through the field. Piastri, again, it's like when Norris needs Piastri to do some defending for him, it just doesn't happen. And Max was so brave and impressive on the brakes into turn one this Grand Prix. Like, the moves he was making there, people weren't expecting them, but no one really defended from him until Leclerc. Piastri afterwards would have realised, damn, like, I should have done a better job there. I know it's tricky because of wet conditions, but like, McLaren needed more on that situation and Piastri wasn't able to deliver. Lawson, did he let him through? Did he not let him through? You guys know how it goes. But, I mean, Max was just on fire today. But, to be fair, on lap 13 also, he started to get caught up in this train. It was a Tsunoda-Ocon, and obviously we're going to talk about the Alpines in a second. Tsunoda-Ocon-Leclerc, Verstappen quartet that basically couldn't be separated. And Verstappen was kind of stuck in this train for some time. The weather, though, was going to get worse, and this is when things started to kick off. So around about this point in the race, the weather got worse, and Leclerc boxed for some reason. Ferrari decided to bring him in for another set of inters, which seemed questionable because the rain was going to get heavier. And as soon as I heard the rain was going to get heavier, I thought, all right, this is going to get red flagged. Like, we've seen this before, it's probably going to happen again. And I don't know why the teams didn't expect that, to be honest, right? Because Hülkenberg goes spinning off, they get a VSC, and now under the VSC, the cars are going slower, they're losing tyre temp, the rain gets heavier, they bring out the safety car, and because the safety car's now out and the rain is heavier, the tyre temps are going slower, like, you know, someone's going to crash. It's how it's going to be. So some teams, the RBs, for example, they went onto the wets because they were the faster tyre at the time. But whenever you need the wet tyre, it's going to be red flagged. That is the way the Pirelli wets work right now. It's as unfortunate as it is, that's just the reality. Like, if the wet tyre is the fastest tyre, it's getting red flagged because the conditions are too bad. With these ground effect cars, there's so much spray. Colapinto loses it, bins it in the wall, and another time where a Williams crashes out in an important championship potential deciding race, and Verstappen is the one to take advantage. Hülkenberg, by the way, was pushed back on track by some marshals. and then got black flagged. We've not seen a black flag since like 2007 or something. Like it's been 15 years since we've had a black flag, and we got one today. So literally everything happens. The race then restarts. Of course, Max has benefited massively. It's now like Ocon P1, Max P2, because everyone else boxed for new inters. Max didn't, and then under the red flag he can change the tyres for free, which is still a stupid rule, to be honest. But of course, you know, he doesn't have to worry about getting rid of the very worn down rubber that he had, because he gets to put on a brand new set of tyres. And this was where clearly the situation was getting to Lando, right? Because he knew he started on pole. Max was starting P17. There's no way that he wouldn't take out a chunk of points of Max's championship lead, right? But obviously not. And at this point in the race, it was clear that it was going to be the other way around, and Max was going to take points out of him. We know how good Max is in the wet, and especially around Brazil, obviously. So here's Lando off the track, goes wide, loses places, and then Stint crashes. He's off into the wall. He has to get rescued. Behrman was off into the wall as well, managed to keep it going. Behrman had a bit of a difficult day for him, but you know, I'm sure there's lots to learn from his side of the garage. And then this was the second restart when Max does go down the inside of Ocon. I think Max at some point was kind of satisfied even just giving away the win, because Ocon was so fast, and the Alpines, I don't know where this pace came from. Like, that car at the start of the season was literally a boat. It was so bad. And it might still be a boat because, you know, touches some water and all of a sudden it's fast. I don't know what happens to the Alpines this weekend, but the funny thing is that Ocon's been nowhere for ages. Gasly's been smoking it, but clearly the Alpines had some pace. This weekend, Ocon just delivered in the race anyway. This in the background, however, is Lando Norris flying off the track. So this is an image maybe to sum up the championship in some respects. This is Max Verstappen taking the lead of the Brazilian Grand Prix from P17 on the grid. This is Lando Norris driving off into the runoff area, losing places, and embarrassingly, really, Piastri, who had a 10-second penalty, had to be asked to let him by because, you know, Norris just needed the place for the championship points. But these then were your final race positions. Verstappen wins, Ocon and Gasly, a double podium. But, like, from Max's side, I know there was lots of tweets about this. This was like vintage Schumacher versus a championship rival who's just not good enough when it matters. And I think that's the problem, right? The McLaren that they've had this season should be way closer. And McLaren themselves, the decisions they made, they even were lucky to hold on as they did in the sprint race. To get to this Sunday, to have Lando in a prime position P1, and obviously from Lando's side, but also from McLaren's side, to allow this masterclass from Max to come through and win the race, like, just... This is why it frustrates me when Max drives like he did in Mexico, because, like, this guy is unbelievably good. He doesn't need to drive like that, but, you know, he does, and that's helped him in the championship, but today has basically cemented it. And, look, he's a deserving championship winner on a drive like today. And Lando Norris, you can't argue the same with the way that that went down. The drama continued, though, after the race, because Norris gave some comments on Verstappen and said, yeah, he drove well, but he got lucky. And sure, there was luck involved, but I think that Max made his own luck, and Red Bull made their own luck with the way that they drove. Lando didn't make any luck for himself. He lost the lead again on the first lap into the first corner and was then behind Russell. It's like, you know, and then he was in a difficult spot, was eating into his tyres. McLaren didn't make the best decisions. And is he right that it's a silly rule that they can change the tyres under the red? Sure, I think so. But, look, and Norris is admitting that's life, it is what it is. But, you know, this quote here, you take a gamble and it paid off for them. It's not talent, it's just luck. And, you know, the problem is for Lando that he does have the talent, but he doesn't have the ability to execute in these moments, right? And Max really just schooled him today. I mean, this was meant to be your championship rival, and he started from P17 on the grid and won. You've started on pole in a position where it looked inevitable you were going to take a sizable chunk out of his lead. Wet conditions, tricky conditions. Max is able to capitalize, Lando isn't. So there's only one deserving champion at the end of the day. And this just looks like sour grapes from Norris, right? I mean, like, not only has he bottled it, but he's also looking like a sore loser. It's not a great look, to be fair, for Lando at the end of the day. And as he says, not a perfect race for me. Fourth was the best you could do behind these guys. He didn't box and got lucky, but otherwise we just got to keep our heads down. But the reality is, based on the numbers, this championship is done and dusted. After Miami, when Lando won, the championship gap was 52 points. Pretty much since then, the McLaren has been the faster car. After Brazil, the championship gap is 62 points. If that gap is any more than 60 next weekend, or not next weekend, it's a while away now to the next race after Las Vegas. If that gap is more than 60, Verstappen is the champion after that race. So Lando needs to, I mean, it's basically over, right? And what a way to end the championship if you are Max Verstappen. But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hopefully the video quality was okay. And yeah, I'm away in Thailand for the next several days. I'll still have content for you guys, maybe at a slightly different time than normal, but appreciate all the support as ever. So hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.